Alright, we're gonna finish working on this birdhouse, and then we're gonna go into working on the birds again. Now, I had to split my last video, so I've got it up, and now we're gonna take off from here.
Most of the pipes of Milwaukee were put in between the years of 1850 to 1870.
Wait a minute. So the pipes that are delivering water to people,
From the water main going to the house, those lead pipes have been put in, majority of them have been put in from between 1850 and 1870.
so we're talking nearly 200-year-old pipes.
About 150 years old, yep. Yep.
And that's today still.
That is today. We still have many of those pipes that old still servicing.
And why this is an urgent crisis, if you're paying attention in Newark, New Jersey, that they have a massive lead issue in the water. And when they were digging up some of those pipes, 1800s.
Yep, yep. And so
this is just common sense. You don't need to be an engineer. If you have pipes in there that are 150 years old, I mean, when you look inside, it looks like a disease. And if the water's going through, all sorts of stuff's leaching off.
And the simple fact that all you got to do is look at the science, and the science says, get rid of these pipes in 70 years.
Yeah.
That's just common sense.
Yeah.
But to slow down and to say, well, we don't know if we can make Biden's agenda of getting rid of these pipes in 10 years, to me signals a lack of concern for the health of this community and no concern for our children. And the city right now of Milwaukee is only relying on the federal funding. It's not even contributing its own money to help speed up the process.
You're talking about the federal funding that came in the
infrastructure. Yep, the ARP. And so it's not even, it's relying on that only. Now, the state of Wisconsin, we have a problem with the Republican Party who doesn't really give a damn about Milwaukee. As far as they're concerned, all those people in Milwaukee can go to hell and die, and they don't care. But at least the city of Milwaukee has money it can use to support the federal.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the federal law, because Biden's made a big show that this is historic and it's going to replace all the lead pipes, is that, are they forced to use that money, or is this, here's the money, use it if you want it?
They're giving the cities the option to do how they want to do it.
Which is a problem.
Which is a big problem.
Because a lot of times you earmark money for X, and suddenly that money is being diverted to all sorts
of other doing things. Oh, well, we're going to have to, that is tied into what the lead pipe removal agenda is, right, but doesn't necessarily say.
I mean, in the case of Flint, that $170 million that went from Congress for Flint water relief, boy, a lot of money started going to law firms and real estate developers and banks, and before you know it, Flint only got like $40 million. So I want to zero in because you mentioned crime, and, you know, Republicans like to use Chicago, the crime, but, I mean, research clearly shows higher crime areas tend to have higher lead.
Right.
So,
and we do have research that came out in Milwaukee about 3 or 4 years ago that showed crime that involved guns and violent crime are linked to people who have had lead issues.
Huh.
And that study was released about 2 to 3 years ago.
And has there been any research into, you know, schools? Because we know lead could stunt learning.
Right. There is research out there that show that, but specific research out of Milwaukee showing that, not that I'm aware of.
Because the government's basically minimizing it, so they're not trying to.
Exactly. They're not. The city has been focused on lead paint, soil, and dust. But when you look at the years that the city was funded to remove lead paint issues from houses, and you compare those years to the numbers of houses that the city actually abated lead paint from, it was minuscule. It was minuscule. In 2017, there were about 130,000 homes in Milwaukee that had lead paint issues. And at that time, the health department at a committee at City Hall said that they, in the last almost 20 years, abated 18,000 homes.
And does media exist in the city of Milwaukee? Do they cover this, investigate anything, knock on doors? Seems like an urgent issue to me.
They did initially when we started because it was really new stuff, and they saw we had some traction, and they thought, oh boy, this is really something, and they started reporting it. But after a while, the city started putting in its afterburners to have its professional, how should I say, media saboteurs come in and slowly wean the media away from really digging into it and accepting the narrative of the city.
So basically the media is calling stations, trying to kill stories. You're going to lose access to politicians.
That's exact, and that was confirmed to us by a number of different media sources that we were working with who were saying, our bosses are telling us to pull back because the city is threatening to not give us the scoop on things.
That's what's going on. That's why what we do is I don't need access to government officials. I actually prefer not to have any access to government officials.
Right.
So, you served the country. I believe we're spending all this money on national security threats all over the world.
Right.
I can't really think of a bigger national security threat than your water, because water is 4 or 5 days without water, you're going to die.
Right.
You might not die right away from dirty water, but it's going to cause all sorts of issues, from cancer to reproductive to cognitive.
Right.
This is a major issue, but I don't really hear it discussed. Wisconsin's a major swing state. I don't hear about the lead in Milwaukee. I don't hear about lead in water in most places. And it's not just lead. You got corporations dumping their stuff in waterways.
Right.
It seems like this is an urgent issue, but it's just been normalized that, like, oh, our kids are...
Right, they're trying to make it look like we're doing something about it now. We're doing something about it now. When in fact, it's just smoke and mirrors. They don't have a comprehensive plan in Milwaukee to remove lead pipes. They have a plan that says we're going to focus on areas that have a disproportionate number of lead pipes. But to deal with the more broader need of removal, they don't have a really good comprehensive plan. If it was building a stadium, they'd have a 300-page comprehensive plan.
But also, it goes to, they could remove the lead service lines and the mains, but what about people's interior plumbing in their homes?
There isn't any, they do mention it as an important part of removing, because they don't want to repeat what happened in Madison, Wisconsin. Madison showed that when they removed their lead pipes, there was still lead in the water, and they realized they did not get the word out to have homeowners remove the lead premises plumbing.
Yeah.
So they know that much, but they don't have a plan on not only removing the lead pipes all around, but then to also visit homeowners and convince them to do something about the lead premises plumbing, providing them with kind of incentives or tax.
I was about to say, people can't afford groceries now.
Right.
It's a lot of money to replace your plumbing in
Exactly.
your home.
So there's got to be some kind of plan put in place that give homeowners an opportunity to invest in their home, remove the pipes, but maybe they could get like a lead abate or a tax abatement or some kind of an incentive to do it.
Right.
There's nothing going on there.
I mean, what does it say to you that you guys in your organization are trying to protect kids, and you seem to be you're doing the job the government should be doing?
Well, we're effective because we've been able to do this in early on because we were the only group talking about it. We were the only group doing something about it. We were the only group who understood the science, who really understood what was happening here. Where things started to derail is when other groups started forming. And when those other groups started forming, they started partnering with the city. They started becoming friends with the bureaucracy. And so rather than continue the way we were moving, and that is to clean this up, they started going after the money. It became a money grab. It became, how do we partner with the city to get the grants?
The good old public-private partnership.
Bingo. And so we're still out there doing the independent work, but now we have to deal with this cadre of public-private people who have gotten together in the interest of the money grab.
And also, just to kind of crystallize this for the audience, this is a Great Lakes state.
Right.
You have in your backyard some of the purest, cleanest water on earth.
Biggest source
The Great Lakes provides 20% of the world's surface freshwater. Yet, so the water can be clean when it's coming out of the plant.
Right.
But if it's going through destroyed pipes, and it's just remarkable. They could snap their finger and replace your pipes.
Right.
For the money.
They could do it easily. And that's what they say to people, the confused people. Well, the water comes from our source, Water Lake, Michigan. It goes through the purification plant. It is clean. It is fresh. It is good. But they don't say until it goes through your lead pipe. Then they don't say that.
Somebody said to me, a plumber said to me in Flint, Jesus can bless the water from the plant, but if it's going through
lead pipes, you're on your own. Yes. And so, people are left with this idea that the orthophosphate is enough to protect them.
And the orthophosphates, the corrosion control chemicals that they didn't add in Flint,
right.
And you have to add by law into cities with over 50,000 people. It's basically supposed to create like a protective wall on the pipes wall to prevent lead.
Right.
But if you got pipes that are from the 1850s, it's not gonna.
It's not doing anything. It's not preventing. If it was preventing lead from leaching into the water, we wouldn't have to flush. If it was preventing lead from leaching into water, why are we still finding particles of lead in the water? It's not preventing anything. It slows the corrosion. It's supposed to slow the corrosion, but like you said, these pipes are over 120, 150 years old in some cases. It ain't doing nothing. It's just something to make people give this false sense of security that this so-called corrosion control method is somehow protecting their families enough to receive the water flowing through this pipe. And in Milwaukee's case, that's a bunch of bullshit.
I see a common thread. Flint, Milwaukee, Detroit, East Palestine, East Chicago, Indiana I've covered, whether it's the water, the soil, the air. You got toxic water, but you got equally toxic government.
Right.
These things can't happen without government either intentionally covering it up or looking the other way. And it's really both sides. I mean, Republicans don't give a shit about clean water, but you got Democratic mayors, city, and they just are
with Democratic city leaders is two things. Either they're inept or they're complicit. It's got to be one or the other.
Both are bad.
And so I am pretty sure that in today's city government of Milwaukee, it's more the complicit than it is ineptness.
Not that this is a 2024 presidential election, it should be, but do you feel if Kamala Harris is elected, this will become more of an urgent priority? Because my understanding of it is this money from the infrastructure deal, like we talked about, encourages them to use the money, but doesn't mandate that cities use the money to replace the pipes.
If she were smart enough to understand the dynamics of what's going on in these cities, she would be telling them to augment the federal money with their own money as well. to remove these pipes faster. And she would also start telling the EPA to clean up the lead copper rule with much stricter measures to force the cities. If she doesn't do that, then this is just going to be nothing but a money grab.
And by the way, the lead copper rule, if you don't know, it's the federal regulation on drinking water. It's totally inadequate. It set the allowable limit for lead at 15 parts per billion.
Right.
Experts will tell you that's not a public health measurement. That's just about corrosion.
Right.
Medical people doctors will tell you the allowable limit for lead is 0, particularly for children, which can destroy a growing child's brain. And what has it been stuck in the review process for like 10, 15 years?
They're looking at hopefully by the end of this month to release a final revised version. Now, in that final revised version, one of the things we're looking at is basically to see if they put in stronger language on holding accountability issues as well as public education issues to further increase the public's knowledge of the hazard and what it means to their health and things like that. And so we're waiting to see, and it's supposedly about 900 pages that are slowly coming out real soon. So we're waiting to see how much of a change the EPA has done to the lead copper rule.
My last question, what's your message to folks in other cities? Because, I mean, Milwaukee's not the only one with pipes that are older than...
Yeah. My message is to other cities, before you begin the process of addressing this, get your science, get your facts, get all the data that you can together. Because
how do they even go about doing that?
They're going to have to basically research it on their own. You can't rely on government to give you things. You're going to have to really put in the work to get this information. And you got to really commit yourself to doing this, because in our case, they attacked us. They attacked us aggressively. They did everything in their power to try to discredit us and make us look like we were nothing but agents of the lead paint industry doing the lead paint industry bidding to take away from the fact that lead paint, soil, and dust is the primary cause of poisoning this city, when we know that there is no data to support that kind of language. So you're going to have thick skin when you start talking about lead and water in these cities, because once you do, these city governments are going to do everything in their power to destroy your credibility and make you look like a loon talking about this whole thing. And so
in the case of Flint, the infamous doctor that got credited with exposing the high child lead levels, Dr. Hannah Atisha, they were saying you're crazy. They were saying you're creating a panic. Right. And then they were forced to admit it.
Right. And then they eventually, and that's what they were saying to us. We were fear mongering. We were crazy. We were raising all these issues. But we were consistent, because not only did we stay with the science and the argument, but we also produced our own data, and we were fortunate enough to show this data in front of city government committees, right, where we basically put ourselves on the line so that the public could see what we have. And when the public saw what we had and they read our data and they read our maps, that's when the whole kit and caboodle of the administration started falling apart.
Based on your research and knowing about this, would you say across the country, most cities have probably some levels of lead problems in the water?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I would be surprised if there is a city in America that doesn't have lead that at least reaches 3 to 5 parts per billion.
And why that's important, so the EPA sets it at 15 parts per billion of lead as, that's the max. Anything under that won't hurt you, according to the EPA. But I mean, any doctor would tell you every person's different.
Right.
I mean, somebody could drink water that has 15 parts per billion, and for whatever reason they're fine. Somebody else could drink water that has 3 parts per billion, and it destroys your system.
And most of the people don't know that lead stays in your body.
Yep.
It goes and hibernates in your bone and soft tissue.
That's why in the case of Flint, they were testing them so late that a lot of their lead wasn't showing up because it was stuck in the bones.
Bingo. And it stays in the blood for 30 days before it goes away if the lead exposure doesn't continue to be ingested by the body. And so your blood shows no lead blood levels, but the lead is in your bones. And the only time that it'll show is if you're ingesting lead from outside source again, or if the body stresses and the lead starts releasing into the bloodstream again, like pregnant women. Pregnant women, if they are stressing and they are going through a pregnancy, that lead that is in their body is going to go back into the bloodstream and eventually wind up killing the fetus.
You know, a long time ago, we had a national mobilization called the New Deal. There was, roads being built, highways being built, government infrastructure programs. So we have the resources to make this kind of that kind of mobilization, but it seems that there's not the appetite for that.
No, we're more interested in feeding the billionaire class more money because, like Elon Musk, one of them want to be the first trillionaire in the world.
Elon Musk, by the way, who pledged to provide full home filtration systems to the people of Flint.
Right. And it's finding out
never did.
And they're finding out he's supposedly giving Starlink access to the hurricane people, but now they got to pay $400 to get the setup.
What a nightmare.
It's crazy.
Well, thank you for taking the time to explain this. And to be clear, you might think that this is a story about Milwaukee. It's a story about America. Because Milwaukee is not the only one with pipes that were built in the 1800s. If I had the time to research it, I'm sure I could find many, many cities. And it's not just major urban cities. We're talking about rural areas have old pipes. Remote areas have old pipes. And it's not just lead. There's a whole lot of other shit in these pipes. And there's also bacteria problems spreading through these pipes. Right. And we didn't even get into a lot of cities' water systems were built for the city when it had a much higher population.
Right.
So when you have population decline, then you have water going through systems that are too large for the population now. So then you have stagnant water that is moving too slowly.
Through the system, exactly.
So we could go on forever, but thank you for fighting the good fight. I'm sure it's frustrating at times, but we'll stay on it.
They have technology and they have the ability to create things in the other realm and bring it here. I say that because I believe that a lot of the stuff that we are experiencing today, the things that we have access to today, it's been talked about for quite some time now, the idea of pharmaceuticals and stuff being actually given to us by fallen angels, essentially. Like in the book of Enoch, it talks about pharmakia to do witchcraft and things like that. I think that they have the ability to create things in the other realm. And if they have the ability to go from there to here, why would it be so hard for us to fathom the idea that the things that they create in another realm to bring that stuff here when they come here? They have technology.
Folks, listen up. I don't say this lightly. We are being conditioned, programmed to accept something big, something catastrophic without question. The global elite, the shadow rulers, the architects of mass deception, whatever you want to call them, are working overtime to spread fear about an incoming celestial event. But the question is why? What you are seeing on your screen right now is an actual simulation released by NASA, supposedly showing what will happen 7 years from now. They've been drip-feeding us a disaster propaganda for years through Hollywood blockbusters like Deep Impact, Don't Look Up, and Armageddon. They joke about it into the media, write it off as scientific curiosity, and mock those who ask too many questions. But let me ask you something. What happens when the warnings aren't just fiction? What if the real Don't Look Up moment is happening right now? A newly identified asteroid, 2024 YR4, has been flagged as having a real shot of slamming into Earth on December 22nd, 2032. That's not some fringe conspiracy, that's hard data. But instead of raising alarm bells, the media and their scientific lapdogs are playing this off like it's nothing. Ask yourself, when have the global institutions ever told you the full truth? Before we continue on, let's read this article. Then we will try and connect some dots. An asteroid capable of destroying a city is headed towards us and may hit the Earth in 7 years' time. But don't panic. Things aren't as hopeless as they sound. 2024 YR4 is a newly discovered space rock that measures between 130 and 300 feet. According to National Geographic, it has a 1 in 53 chance of hitting the Earth somewhere on its surface on December 22nd, 2032. To get the bad news out of the way first, the answer is that it will have a noticeable impact, especially if it strikes one of the world's major cities. So, not necessarily deadly, but definitely not something to brush off. It will cause casualties. It will cause major damage to people, to buildings, and even at a small scale, to wildlife. It won't be as catastrophic as the global scale disaster that killed all the dinosaurs, but it would still be sizable for the city or the place in which the asteroid would impact. However, while the worst case scenario certainly looks devastating, experts assure that we should continue paying attention to 2024 YR4. But that there is no need to worry too much. Various networks operated by world space agencies, such as NASA, are constantly monitoring the skies for these sorts of potential collisions. For example, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, ATLAS, is vastly used by scientists and was the particular telescope in Chile to initially discover 2024 YR4 on December 27, 2024. It's a network of telescopes, fully automated, fully robotic, that are designed or optimized for detecting small objects in the sky in a brief period of time before they impact Earth, Angel explained. How it works is simple. The machine takes multiple pictures of the sky, all in different directions and positions. If there is any detection of movement for an object, experts may flag it as an asteroid. Their trajectory may also be predicted given its movement in the sky and its brightness. And this said trajectory is what makes 2024 YR4 so perilous, according to Angel. Its size is considered relatively average, but the asteroid's current path is the reason this space rock is breaking headlines. Combine that with the fact that it's much too big to transform into a meteorite and make its presence known as a shooting star. Scientists conclude that it could be a problem. We've seen this pattern before. Apophis, the infamous asteroid that some believe could be the prophesied wormwood from the Book of Revelation, was originally said to be on a direct collision course with Earth in 2029. I worked for Tom Horn when he wrote his book on the matter. In fact, I filmed and edited this trailer for it.
I intend to share undisclosed facts that are stranger and scarier than most people can comprehend, and it is going to shake the public to the bone. And yes, this involves a cover-up of the highest order by national space agencies, including NASA.
The asteroid is 100% certain to strike Earth, according to one space expert who says this is a matter of life and death.
You'd probably have millions of casualties. Is a planet-killing asteroid a possibility? NASA has determined that the threat is real.
And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. And it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And many men died of the waters.
Chief technology experts and working scientists agree with me. But what's more concerning is that this was prophesied in the Bible for the end times.
He said that insiders have warned him that NASA is downplaying the danger of Apophis, that they know it's going to hit, but they're keeping it under wraps to prevent global panic. If that's true about Apophis, what aren't they telling us about 2024 YR4? Folks, this isn't about fear-mongering. This is about asking the questions they don't want you to ask. Ever notice how asteroid warnings come in waves? First, we get a big announcement, then a correction, then silence, then another asteroid just misses Earth. What's the pattern here? This is a classic desensitization campaign. Step 1. Announce a major space threat. Let the public chew on it. Step 2, walk it back. Say the danger isn't real. Step 3, repeat this cycle until people tune out. Step 4, when the real event happens, everyone is numb to it. And let's not forget the ritualistic elements of their messaging. Why is every catastrophe tied to occult numerology and biblical prophecy timelines? December 22nd, 2032, almost 20 years to the day after the Mayan calendar was supposed to signal this exact same thing. Think about it. In my opinion, this is a psychological warfare tactic. They show you the problem in advance, they normalize it, and then when the real thing hits, boom, total compliance. Now, I'm not saying 2024 YR4 or Apophis are the wormwood asteroid mentioned in Revelation 8, 10, 11, but let's be real, it fits the prophecy too well to ignore. The globalists and the technocratic elite are trying to position themselves as gods playing with artificial intelligence, transhumanism, and space colonization, but they cannot escape divine justice. The real question is, are you ready for what's coming? Now, don't mistake my words. I am not here to spread fear. That's their game. We don't fear the storm, we prepare for it. We stay vigilant. We question the narratives. We trust in God, not the lying institutions of men. Because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, asteroid, war, global collapse, we are in the hands of the Almighty. The book of Psalms tells us, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Pray, prepare, spread awareness, and above all, never stop questioning the official story, because when they tell you, don't look up, that's exactly when you should.